So whenever you're building a bag, whether that's your EDC bag, your bug out bag, your 72-hour bag, your camping bag, whatever it is, there's a few things that need to be in every bag. And one of those is obviously fire. Now, every EDC should have a Bic lighter in it. And I'm not just talking about bags, I'm talking about on your person. I think every person should carry at least a Bic lighter. It can just be used in so many situations. It's one of those things that once you start carrying it, you realize how often you actually use it or need it. But every bag, I think, should have at least 2 Bic lighters. And that's, you know, 1 is none, 2 is 1. But you also need some redundancies in addition to that, whether that be a Fresnel lens, which is really good because it's non-consumable. You can use it forever. A mirror, if you know how to use a mirror to focus to make a fire. But something that's really easy that really everyone should have is a Ferro Rod. Now, a Ferro Rod is a pretty simple, straightforward tool. So this is the Ferro Rod that I have in this 72-hour bag, and it's just a pretty generic, thick boy. But what a Ferro Rod is it's a combination of metals that includes a high percentage of magnesium. Basically, what you need is you need something that when struck will spark, and then something that will burn. So when you spark it, the magnesium will ignite and actually become molten metal, and that's what gives you those big sparks. Especially on some of these bigger ones, you can get the sustained sparks that you'll see like fly across the room or land on the floor. So you get sparks when you scrape it. So you have your Ferro Rod or Ferrocerium Rod, and then you have a scraper, and then of course you also need your tinder that you will ignite with that spark. So on a recent fieldcraft day with some of the boys where we were just kind of going out in the woods, playing with fire, going on a hike, practicing making different shelters, one of the things we realized is that a lot of them either didn't have a Ferro Rod or didn't know how to use a Ferro Rod. So again, this is a pretty basic setup, but the thing that I found that was perfect for this is the guys over at Whiskey and Wilderness have a Ferro Rod setup that comes with the rod, it comes with a scraper, tied together with a nice piece of nylon. So real quick, I'm gonna show you how to use it and all the different components that are here. So this really is a fairly basic piece of kit. You have your Ferro Rod and you have your scraper. And this scraper does have a few different tools on it. You've got a bottle opener here, you've got a ruler up here with millimeters on this side and kilometers on this side for measuring maps. You've got your scraper end here, and what this is used for is I've seen it used for like if you have wet wood and you want to scrape the bark off, you can use that to scrape the bark off. I've never used, really I haven't used any of this except for the actual scraper. But the thing I really like about the Whiskey and Wilderness scraper that's different than, like I've seen this exact thing in a lot of different places, but theirs, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it actually has a like lip right there on the edge, and that makes it really easy to scrape sparks off of your Ferro Rod. They do have it tied together with just a piece of like nylon rope. This is not actually 550 paracord. I'd probably recommend swapping it out for some orange paracord because I really like that bright color to be able to see it if I drop it, and if I want to be concealed, just stick it in your pocket. But you take the sharp end of the scraper, and you don't need a scraper, but these are really nice to use. You want to put it at an angle on your rod, right, about a 30-degree angle. Apply downward pressure and scrape out. So you're going to get some really nice big sparks off this. And of course it's daytime out, so it's a little harder to see, especially on camera. But that scraper right there does help you dig in deep to this rod to get up a bunch of that magnesium and give you some really big sparks that are going to burn a little longer than just some little light sparks that it's going to be harder to catch your tinder on. So down here in Florida, this is my go-to tinder. We have Spanish moss everywhere, and when it dies and dries out, it turns into this like nasty black brown, it kind of looks like beard hair almost. But when you see this and it's dry, which you can tell by touching it to your lips or to your cheek and seeing if it's cool. If it's not cool, that means it's nice and dry and you can really feel the dryness here. But this stuff burns really easy. So if you're looking for some kind of tinder out in the woods, this is, especially down here in the Southeast, like this is what I always go to. And if I'm teaching somebody how to strike a fire with a Ferro Rod, this is what I grab. So what I like to do is you want to kind of form your tinder into a nest, and you can work it around to break up some of those fibers and make a little pocket in there. And that's what you want to be able to have fully enclosed to catch your spark. You'll put your rod into that pocket, and with your scraper, typically people want to scrape down into the pocket, but it can be hard to aim your sparks when you're scraping down. So you're gonna want to pull the ferro rod back, and that pocket catches your sparks, and you can kind of flip this over to make sure that the whole thing catches. And now you have a fire that you could put your kindling on until eventually you have your wood burning. So as long as you have a quality ferro rod and a good scraper, making sparks is super, super easy. Like once you get it and you figure out the angle and the pressure to apply on there, starting a fire with this is easy every time, as long as you have the right tinder. And now you don't need a scraper because some knives will work just fine as long as there is a nice sharp edge. And I don't mean sharp like the blade, I mean like a nice 90-degree angle on the back of the knife. You can also use that to get really good sparks, but not every knife is good for that. So like one of my go-to in the woods knives is this Azula 2 from Essie. And the coating on the back of this just does not, like you could feel the slipperiness there. That is not going to scrape off that magnesium and ignite it. So this is not going to be used for fire starting, which is why having a scraper, even though you don't need it, I think every ferro rod should be tied with a scraper. And now going back to tinder a little bit, in addition to the Whiskey and Wilderness ferro rod set, they also have this wick set. And this is actually pretty interesting. I've been wanting to play with one of these for a while. You have a hemp rope that has some like wax coating on it, and then a little metal sleeve. So prepping this piece of rope, you're gonna wanna take your end here, which you can see I've burned a few times. And the best thing you can do is like spread it out as much as possible. The best thing you can do to start a fire, really any kind of fire, is to get the smallest fibers possible, because the smaller they are, the easier they're going to be to ignite. And then once you get a small flame, the rest of it is going to take off fairly easily. So you unravel it just a little bit and get those guys frayed out. And now this is ready to be used to start your fire. So we'll place this down on the ground. And now you don't have that nice little nest to throw the sparks into, but you can fray it out more and more so you have a larger surface area to catch those sparks. And now you've got your fire going, and you can basically use this as any kind of, like you would, you know, a Bic lighter or anything. You know, you can let this burn as long as you want to catch your kindling and get your fire going. Now, the nice thing about this, as opposed to like the moss, one, you could see I could carry this around with me wherever I go. You know, and I can start it over there and then take it to my fire. It's gonna burn for a lot longer. And it's actually got a pretty good size flame to it. Now, whenever you are ready to put this out, you can actually go back to this metal sleeve on the end here, and you run that through, and there you go. Your fire is all put out. The other thing you can do with this metal sleeve is, if you do take it completely off of that string, nice Whiskey and Wilderness branding there, you can actually use this as a bellow to your fire. So when it is small and just starting to burn, you'll blow in one end of this to direct the oxygen flow directly into the base of the fire. Something as simple as this, like, this doesn't look like a big deal, but even having this straw makes a huge difference when you're trying to start a fire. It really is super easy to start a fire with a ferro rod, as long as you have a good quality rod, good tinder, and you've taken 5 minutes to learn how to do it. And I really have taken several people in less than 5 minutes from what is this thing to I just started a fire, because the actual like magnesium is kind of dummy proof. Like, You scrape it, it sparks. When you have a good tinder source, it accepts that spark super easy. And of course, in almost every survival situation, having fire is super, super important, because there are just so many good things in life that require fire to accomplish. So if you don't have a Ferro Rod, I will have an affiliate link below to Whiskey and Wilderness where you can pick up this fire set, maybe a cool hat. But I really just recommend having a Ferro Rod in every bag you have, and take 5 minutes to make sure you know how to use it, and then you know how to find the right tinder for it. There's tons of tinder out here in the woods, but if you don't know what you're looking for, or in a wet environment, maybe like here in Florida, it's been literally raining for a week. I've been having to postpone this video waiting for the rain to stop so I can get out here and do this. Having something like this little wick set makes it super easy, guys. But again, get out in the woods and do the thing.